Alexis L's dream. From the time she was a small child, Alexis Ells remembers rescuing injured animals and bringing them home for care. Healing has always been innate to me, says Ells. It's been a calling, a passion. I was one of those blessed people who always knew what I wanted to do. By continuing to follow this innate passion, Ells is fulfilling her life's dream as the founder of the Equine Sanctuary, a non-profit organization that rescues, rehabilitates, and retrains injured performance horses that can no longer compete. Ells says, reaching her dream meant facing life's inevitable uncertainties and taking action now, not later. So many people are waiting for that perfect moment, she says. But that right moment never shows up. We have to create that moment. Our destiny isn't about fate. It's about a choice. Ells's life has been fraught with great challenges, including a serious illness and a car accident in 1988 that ended her competitive riding career and left her with a serious brain injury. But she believes her success is built on her attitude that being challenged in life is inevitable, being defeated is optional. I think it's about perception and perspective, she says. If you give yourself the freedom to know that anything is possible, and you keep having faith, belief, and perseverance despite the odds, you will eventually arrive at the top of the mountain. Taken from National Geographic.
2. The giant panda. An endangered species. The giant panda can only be found in the mountain bamboo forests of western China. There are only about 1,000 wild giant pandas left in the world. Giant pandas are members of the bear family, and they are mammals. Even though giant pandas look just like bears, they certainly do not behave like bears. Unlike their meat-eating relatives, giant pandas are vegetarians for the most part of their time. Their favorite food is bamboo. Giant pandas must eat a lot of bamboo every day to get enough nourishment. In fact, they spend at least 12 hours every day eating about 33 pounds of bamboo. However, if they are extremely hungry and bamboo is nowhere to be found, giant pandas may eat grass, fruits, or sometimes small animals like chicken. Giant pandas do not live in groups. They are loners. They only leave their territory from March to May to look for a mate. Female giant pandas usually give birth to twins. Baby giant pandas are very small, blind, pinkish, and weigh about 5 ounces at birth. Strangely, mother giant pandas tend to choose to raise just one baby and leave the other to die. Mother giant pandas feed their babies with milk. A baby giant panda opens its eyes at 6 to 7 weeks. It starts to learn how to walk when it is about 3 or 4 months old. Mother giant pandas look after their babies for about 18 months. Once the young is strong enough, it bids farewell to its mother and moves out to live independently. Helpdesk.com.
Exam question 3. The musical glass. Mary Elizabeth loved music. She was happy when she heard lovely sounds. She waited to hear the birds sing outside her window in the spring. She listened for the cricket songs when she swept the hearth in her mother's kitchen. The horses passing her papa's store made a clip-clop sound. That was a song to Mary Elizabeth. These songs made her heart fill with joy. Mary Elizabeth had only one wish. She wanted to make music on her own. She couldn't sing very well. Her brother Matthew had said, "You sound like the cat when Nana stepped on its tail." She loved music so much Why couldn't she make music on her own? Mary Elizabeth knew where to go when she was sad. Her uncle, Ben Franklin, could always make her smile. Best of all, Uncle Ben loved music just like Mary Elizabeth. One morning, Mary Elizabeth stood outside Uncle Ben's workshop. She could hear him humming to himself. She knew something fun was going to happen. She opened the door and saw Uncle Ben at his work table. Oh, what happened? Broken glasses were everywhere. There were big glasses, little glasses, and middle-sized glasses spread out on his table. Wait a minute! Only the stems that held the glasses up were broken off. What was Uncle Ben doing? Uncle Ben saw the puzzled look on Mary Elizabeth's face. "Come, little songbird," he said. "I will show you how we can make beautiful music. We will use what is broken. We can turn it into something good." By Jane Runyon. Examination card 4. The first woman in business. At the start of the 20th century, the idea of women in business seemed crazy. In those days, men held all the positions of power and made all decisions about money. They believed that a woman's place was at home, looking after her children, cooking for her family, and managing the house. If a woman needed to work, she could perhaps find a job in a shop or in a factory, but she had no chance of working as businesswoman or a banker or a lawyer. Women's fashions in the USA and Europe at that time supported their position in society. Fashionable women wore long dresses that almost touched the ground. This made it difficult for them to drive a car, ride a horse, or even walk quickly. But many women were not happy with their position in society, and they didn't like the clothes they had to wear. One of those people was a French woman called Gabrielle Coco Chanel. When she went into business in 1910, she planned to change clothes that women wore. But over the next 60 years, she did much more than that, as she became the richest and the most successful businesswoman. Coco Chanel had no experience of business when she opened her first hat shop in Paris in 1910. She was only 27 years old, and she came from an ordinary family. Many of Coco's customers in her first shop were her young women friends. They loved the simple but beautiful hats and dresses that Coco's made for them. And soon her shop started to do well. David Evans. Examination card 5. In the 21st century, our need for energy is greater than it has ever been. Fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas were formed millions of years ago, and when power stations burned them to create electricity, they released harmful gases into the atmosphere. There may be enough coal to last for a few hundred years, but known oil and gas reserves will run out in less than 50 years. And then, what will we do? Many scientists suggest turning to renewable energy, which means sources of energy that will never run out. It can be produced using the wind, the sun, waves, or hot springs. The wind can turn large turbines to produce electricity, while energy from the sun can be collected in panels and stored in the batteries. The movement of sea can also be changed into electrical energy by using wave machines, and in parts of the world where there is volcanic activity, hot springs can produce geothermal energy. Unlike nuclear power, these are safe sources of energy that don't pollute the environment. Our dependence on fossil fuels has to end soon. Let's hope that by the time all the reserves are gone, there will be enough alternative sources of efficient energy available. In the meantime, why don't we try to reduce the amount of energy that we use? Examination card 6. Coca-Cola is probably the world's best-known taste, and was the first truly global brand. Dr. John Smith Pemberton, a pharmacist from Atlanta, Georgia, invented the drink. He mixed the Coca-Cola syrup, which was combined with carbonated water, to make a popular soda fountain drink in the local Jacobs pharmacy. The first customers, who paid a handsome 5 cents a glass, pronounced the drink to be excellent, delicious and refreshing. Dr. Pemberton's partner and bookkeeper, Frank M. Robinson, suggested the product's unusual name and wrote it down in his florid handwriting, feeling that the two C's would look well in the advertising. The first advertisement for the drink appeared in Atlanta's Journal, and hand-painted oilcloth signs indicated which soda fountain drinks offered the product. This was just the first step in fantastic cooperation between the brand and advertising, which has made the trademark universally recognized. A continuous stream of slogans have entered the collective consciousness, from Drink Coca-Cola in 1886, the iconic I'd like to teach the world to sing television advertisement of 1971, right up to the simple assertion, real, of today's campaign. The end. Examination card 7. National Tom Sawyer Days. What do Tom Sawyer and Jumping Frogs have in common? Stories about both of them were created by one man, Mark Twain. Born Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain was his pen name. Twain was 4 when his family moved to Hannibal, Missouri, located on the west bank of Mississippi. Twain grew up there and was fascinated with life along the river, the steamboats, the giant lumber rafts, and the people who worked on them. The celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras country is one of the 20 best-loved short stories, and The Adventures of Tom Sawyer is one of his most famous novels. Both these works are celebrated by events held during National Tom Sawyer Days every 4th of July. The boy in the photo entered his frog in the jumping contest. There is also a fence painting contest to see who can paint the fastest. The idea for this contest comes from a scene in Tom Sawyer, in which Tom has been told to paint the fence in front of the house he lives in. It's a beautiful day, and he would rather be doing anything else. As his friends walk by, he convinces them it's fun to paint, and they join in the fun. By the end of the day, the fence has 3 coats of paint. Although the story of Tom Sawyer is fiction, it's based on fact. If you go to Hannibal, you'll see the white fence, which still stands at Twain's boyhood home. The end. Examination card 8. California Strawberry Festival. Have you ever tried a strawberry pizza? If you went to Oxnard, the strawberry capital of California, in May, you could. Oxnard in Southern California, and this part of state takes its strawberries very seriously. At the 2-day California Strawberry Festival, you can see and try strawberries prepared in all sorts of ways, in addition to traditional treats, such as strawberry shortcake, strawberry jam, strawberry tarts, and strawberry dipped in chocolate. There is a strawberry pizza. This dessert pizza is topped with strawberries, sour cream, cream cheese, and whipped cream on sweet bread baked like a pizza. Strawberry kebabs dipped in powdered sugar are another delicacy, and drinks such as strawberry smoothie can wash it all down. Strawberries are big business in Oxnard. The annual strawberry revenues are 100 million from Oxnard's bountiful 6,600 berry acres. "24 companies harvest and cool nearly 16 trays of berries, which are shipped throughout North America, as well as to Germany and Japan. The festival, which attracts more than 85,000 visitors, features 3 stages with musical entertainment, 335 arts and craft exhibits, strolling musicians, clowns, artists, face painting contests, and Strawberry Land for children with puppets, magicians, musicians, and pet zoo. The end. Number 9. The Rich Family in Church. I'll never forget Easter of 1946. I was 14. My little sister Ossie was 20, and my elder sister Darlene was 16. We lived at home with our mother. Our dad had died 5 years before, leaving Mom with 3 school kids to raise and no money. A month before Easter, the pastor of our church asked everyone to save money and help a poor family. When we got home, we talked about what we could do. We decided to buy 50 pounds of potatoes and live on them for a month. When we thought that if we kept our electric lights turned out as much as possible and didn't listen to the radio, we'd save money on that month's electric bill. Darlene got as many house and yard cleaning jobs as possible, and both of us babysat for everyone we could. Every day we counted the money to see how much we had saved. At night we'd sit in the dark and talked about how the poor family was going to enjoy having the money the church would give them. The day before Easter, Ossie and I walked to the grocery store, and the manager gave us 3 20 bills and 1 10 bill for all our change. We had never had so much money before. We could hardly wait to get to the church. When the pastor was taking money, Mom gave him a 10 bill and each of us kids 20. As we walked home after church, we sung all the way. Later that afternoon, the minister drove up in his car. Mom went to the door and then came back with envelope in her hand. She opened the envelope, and out fell a bunch of money. There were 3 20 bills, 1 $10, and 17 $1 bills. The end. Examination card 10. The Bermuda Triangle. At 2 p.m. on 5 December 1945, 5 U.S. bombers took off from Fort Lauderdale in USA for training flight in perfect weather. Shortly afterwards, the pilot radioed that their flight instruments were all malfunctioning. 2 hours after takeoff, all contact with the planes was lost. A reconnaissance plane was immediately dispatched to search for missing planes. Within 10 minutes, radio contact with it had also been lost. No trace of any of the planes was ever found. In all, 6 planes and 27 men had vanished into the air. The disappearance of 6 planes was far from being the first mysterious incident in the area. For years, navigation problems and strange magnetic forces had been reported. The disappearance was not even the greatest disaster within the triangle. The Cyclops, a 19,000-ton U.S. ship, was sailing from Barbados to Norfolk, Virginia, in March 1918, when it vanished with its crew of 309 from the surface of the ocean, without making a distress call and without the slightest wreckage ever being found. The losses of boats and planes in that area defy explanation. The disasters are the origins of new phrase in English language, the Bermuda Triangle, and this phrase has entered legend. The Bermuda Triangle has called the Devil's Triangle, the Triangle of Death, the Graveyard of Atlantic. It has swallowed up 140 ships and planes, and more than 1,000 people. Today, many airmen and sailors are still afraid of that area of the Atlantic Ocean. The end.
11. Romeo and Juliet? The greatest love story of all times.
Since the invention of the motion picture, in 1894, Romeo and Juliet has been one of the most popular stories in films. Numerous movies have been based on Shakespeare's famous love story, the earliest dating back to 1900. Many directors have taken this famous play and made it into a film, trying to keep to the themes of the original story. One of them is Baz Luhrmann. His version of Romeo and Juliet, produced in 1996, has been described as an original, postmodern version of Shakespeare's tragic love story. With this extremely successful film, Luhrmann has managed to update the story by combining modern-day settings and characters with almost the original language. The story is set in Miami. The changes in the language, together with dramatic gunfights and passionate love scenes, make the story more accessible to modern audiences. In Luhrmann's version of the film, the main characters, Romeo, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Juliet, Claire Danes, are Miami teenagers of the 90s. Even though the setting of the film is very unconventional, it contains all the themes of the original version, because it does not change the story at all. 12. It's Only Me. After her husband had gone to work, Mrs. Richards sent her children to school and went upstairs to her bedroom. She was too excited to do any housework that morning, because in the evening, she would be going to a fancy dress party with her husband. She intended to dress up as a ghost, and she had made her costume the night before. Now she was impatient to try it on. Though the costume consisted only of a sheet, it was very effective. Mrs. Richards put it on, looked in the mirror, smiled and went downstairs. She wanted to find out whether it would be comfortable to wear. Just as Mrs. Richards was entering the dining room, there was a knock on the front door. She knew that it must be the baker. She had told him to come straight in, if ever she failed to open the door, and to leave the bread on the kitchen table. Not wanting to frighten the poor man, Mrs. Richards quickly hid in the small storeroom under the stairs. She heard the front door open and heavy footsteps in the hall. Suddenly, the door of the storeroom was opened, and a man entered. Mrs. Richards realized that it must be the man from the electricity board, who had come to read the meter. She tried to explain the situation, saying it's only me, but it was too late. The man let out a cry, and jumped back several paces. When Mrs. Richards walked towards him, he ran away, slamming the door behind him. Just funny stories.